You're listening to the Habitology podcast with Melanie White, and today I'm really pleased to introduce Jono Snell. Jono, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mel. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Can you give us a bit of an intro about yourself?
Yeah, well, Jono Snell. I'm a physiotherapist by trade. I had a career change at about 30.
Mm-hmm.
I was working as an insurance broker before then, financial services, before becoming a physiotherapist. And I suppose for a long time, I was in the business of prescribing exercises. You go to a physio, you tear a hamstring, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've kind of moved into stroke rehab. And so, trying to teach people how to work, how to walk. And I was kind of encountering the same thing in terms of people weren't doing things much.
Mm-hmm.
And I never stopped to think why they were doing that. I just continued to do the same sort of thing, play the expert and tell people what to do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, I had a bit of a sea change, both personally and professionally, in terms of doing things a different way. And at the time, I just thought of it as I just want to be a bit more open-minded, and just kind of look into other things. And now, having had a period of time to think about it, I realised it was a bit more than that. It was just deciding to approach health and well-being in a little bit of a different sort of a way. I kind of, excuse me if I'm, interrupt me if I'm rambling.
No, it's good.
The big thing for me was kind of, before I was very 1 + 1 = 2. This is that.
Yeah.
And which I think it was just a subtle difference from being open-minded. It's really kind of been open-minded in practice. It's like, okay, well, maybe it is. I heard a good quote the other day. 1 + 1 pile of laundry plus 1 pile of laundry does not equal 2 piles of laundry. It's just a big pile, right? It may be a whole bunch of piles. So so just by that, 1 + 1 does not equal 2, and in that case, and I think kind of getting into health coaching has been a natural part of that process. Like the coaching psychology, the principles of motivation, positive psychology, self-inquiry, humanity, that kind of thing, that courage. And I found that these were serving me well personally as I was getting kind of to a 40 plus kind of an age, going through a bit of a tough time. I suppose you call it a midlife crisis, but of course, typical of kind of guys my age, we're in denial, but I was seeing it in my peers, really successful guys, who are ticking these boxes, these of a successful life.
Yeah.
But still struggling, still having, just not feeling happy, not feeling satisfied, whatever, their different definition of happiness was.
Yeah.
And it just made me think there's a need out there in respect of that, of us older guys, but not quite old guys,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of me, where from then to, over the last 20 years to now.
That's a good roadmap, Jono. Thanks for sharing that. It gives us a bit of background as to how you evolved into the current state of being. And tell us a bit about the types of guys that you're coaching and what it's like to coach men.
Yeah. So the type of guys that I am generally gearing my approach, my message to, generally 40 plus men. Like I said before, they've kind of ticked a lot of the boxes in terms of achieving things in life. What's supposed to be achieved. If you kind of put the stereotypical achievements. Marriage, career. Children. And bringing home a good money, and just really being a good provider. Following those kind of rules. that they've been told, or the message has been going through, since they were young, that that leads to a happier life. And like I said, sometimes often it's not always the case. Their people have often taken their health and well-being for granted.
Right.
You get to 40, like the rules are different.
You're busy, you've got responsibilities. As
right.
Someone once said to me, oh, he's become Tommy No Toys. And I said, what does
Yeah.
that mean? And he said, well, now he's married and got kids, he's not allowed to play with any of his toys. So he's got a shed full of stuff that he's selling because doesn't use it as sporting equipment, for example.
Yeah. That's right. And it's both a physical and a mental thing, because I mean, when you're 40 plus, like things are changing. Your recovery from exercise is a bit different. You're sleeping a bit differently. You need to go to the toilet a bit more at night. You're noticing. It's subtle, but it's noticeable in terms of the changes. So, like I said, they've often taken their health and well-being for granted. But there are changes in terms of their well-being, in terms of their sleep, in terms of their weight, that kind of thing, that previously they've taken for granted. They could go out and have a couple of big nights, and still be able to show up as that productive, happy person, but they're struggling a little bit more after 40, but still trying to perhaps kind of living that life a little bit. A lot of the guys that I've dealt with, and a lot of this kind of demographic, I suppose you call it, group, they use alcohol as a distraction, as a crutch. Like it's and speaking from personal experience, since teenagehood, it's what we do. We drink a lot.
It's cool to do it. It's macho to do it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's often a it's a distraction, like we know it's often a distraction, but it's often it's kind of like, I'd liken it to it's like an outdated program. You're running out this alcohol. I'm drinking for a certain, I know, speaking from personal experience, and I know talking with a lot of guys, they're drinking for the same reasons they when they were 17, 18. They're literally drinking for the same reasons.
Except in a 45-year-old man's body.
In a 45-year-old body, they're drinking to become someone different, to be less self-conscious, so that they can talk to girls. That program is still running. Whereas, like when you're 45, you've got a couple of kids, you're married, you don't need to do that. They're confident people. We're all capable of having that confidence without the booze. I'm not anti-booze or anything, like I'm all for having a drink, so, but I'm very conscious of people being aware of why they drink and when they drink. When I drink, it's so social, and I'm having a great time and making it part of that kind of social connection, which is that's what it should all be about. Another thing with this group, they really suffer in silence. It's there's this very, they're very proud, and there's a real shame, there's a real worry about appearing weak, a showing of vulnerability, showing that, hey, I'm going through a tough time. And it's this real entrenched idea that showing that kind of vulnerability is weakness. And that's a massive issue. So and then of course, and when people therefore, again, going back to the they're eating too much, drinking too much, that kind of thing. And often 40 plus guys, we're really we like to be right.
I think it's not just 40 plus guys. Can I say that?
No, that's cool. I totally agree, and it makes sense, right? As we get older, it's like you know, hey, things have turned out okay, you know, generally, you know.
And you've got experience and skills, and you want to be
Exactly.
acknowledged for that, and you
Exactly.
create an identity around the things that you've done in your life.
That's right. Yeah. And you really kind of, you know, I know a lot of people, a lot of guys, you know, and they double down on that stuff. It's like, hey, I've got to CEO or CFO or whatever, you know, like this approach has worked. So, you know, like, hey, let's, you know, to kind of examine that, to put the kind of torch on really examining that, and perhaps having some sort of sense of awareness that, hey, there are drawbacks to certain things, the ways that I do things in life. That is such a hard thing to do, particularly as you get older, you know, like like I said, you know, when your identity is kind of is wound up in the beliefs that you have.
Yeah,
so,
but when your body changes without your permission, it causes you to have to face some uncomfortable realities, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, Jono, when guys come to you for coaching, what are maybe 2 or 3 main things that they're looking to achieve? What are the outcomes that they want?
Okay,
I think offline you mentioned more energy was one of the things.
Yeah, energy's massive. Energy's massive, and it's something that you really need to explore with a lot of people, because energy. It's different kinds of energy. It's like, and it's not just feeling better when they wake up. It's, you know, like just feeling exhausted after a poor night's sleep. It's a vitality. It's a if I had to describe it, I've heard like mojo. Mojo is a word I hear a lot in this space. It's a loss of mojo. Now, mojo, only part of mojo is energy. And you know, it's rare. It's something that really needs to be explored. When someone says they've lost their mojo, there's a lot, you know, it's very hard. We kind of know, you know, like just we kind of know what it is, but really for each person it might be very, very different. But that's very much a big one. And that's, mojo is essentially, it's a bit of energy, right? And it can be, you know, in terms of just not having the energy first thing in the morning, you know, not having the energy at work. That they a lot of these guys, they're professional, they're real go-getters, they're used to crushing it at work, and yet they really struggle. There's that in terms of the way they show up in their work life. Then of course there's the family life, just really struggling to get the energy in terms of in terms of family. That's a real complaint. That's because, you know, having kids, and whatever age they are, whether they be young or whether they're teenagers, you need a lot of energy. Kids kind of know. they really know.
They know when you're low, and they leverage that.
They do, you know, and you know, like if you're low a lot, you know, that's just you know, like a lot of guys who just really they know it's not a great way to be low in energy, because it comes across in your relationships and your marriage, you know, like,
and then people can go, I've got you. I'm gonna nail you while you're down.
And of course,
as you said, they spot it, right? And so I guess when I'm hearing mojo, it sounds like you're just kind of describing a unique blend of physical, mental, and emotional energy.
Yeah, that's right. It's really it's the energy, you know. And so, you know, and you just, I think, in terms of addressing those kinds of things, you really need to establish, you know, what is the, like, where is that manifesting in terms of in their life, in terms of, you know, like that, where that mojo is not, where they're feeling that loss of mojo. And how it manifests, you know, and a lot of it will be, you know, they'll be gaining weight. You know, loss of mojo. And I think the weight, you know, often the weight gain will happen as a result of that loss of mojo, you know, loss of energy. you just move. You start moving less,
Comfort food.
and you start eating more because you've lost your mojo. Mojo is, and it's not just energy though. The thing with mojo, like mojo, one thing that's really interested me in terms of when I talk to men who will talk about mojo, and it's a care, that the ability to care, to actually care about things. They want to care, but part of the losing the mojo is not caring as much, which is kind of that, and that's another layer before. And I'm not saying that if for everyone it's that's the case, but a lot of it is just that it just changes. You know, they're showing up. They're kind of showing up, but it's just the key that it's that key, which is that's a profound thing. And, you know, like I was talking about in terms of, you know, guys are doubling down on things, and, you know, in terms of when you're really kind of, you know, becoming self-aware, for anyone to question themselves ability to care and to be showing up in a caring way, that is, it's such a brave, courageous, very vulnerable thing to do. But it's I think it can be really profound, because it's not just care about others, about your relationships, about your children, about your wife. It will often manifest care, your personal care. In fact, that's often the one that suffers first when you kind of when you lose that caring. You know, when you lose the mojo and you're like, oh, I just don't care. So what happens if you don't care about something, right? You're just gonna you're gonna treat it like crap.
You don't pay attention, and then it's going to decline, and then on it goes. And I can see what you're talking about. I mean, if you think about stress and resilience, stress is when you don't have the resources to cope, and resilience is the building up of things that you do for yourself to counteract the effects of stress. So the less you care about yourself, the less resources you have to deal with stress, and the more stress you are likely to experience, and then that affects all areas of your life, as you're saying. And
absolutely,
Jono, I'm interested if you've got a bit of a case study you can talk us through, confidentially, of course, and without revealing anybody's name or identities. Have you got a bit of an example of someone that you've worked with, or a typical pattern that you see in people that you work with, where they come to you with XYZ to do with their mojo, and then through the coaching process and changing a few habits and making a few small improvements, what sorts of outcomes they're getting?
Yeah, probably I'll talk about one guy that very much followed that, you know, what I was just speaking about in terms of he was complaining. He was saying that he was, you know, very low in energy, and the more, he actually said, "Look, I've lost my mojo. I've really lost my mojo, gained weight. I'm drinking, you know, I'm just, he knew why he was gaining weight, because he's eating too much and drinking too much.
He stopped caring about himself so much,
and he'd stopped caring. But it was really interesting, because that's not the take. You know, when that happened with him, that wasn't immediately apparent. It was just like, okay, and that's a lot of it's again a lot of the thing with 40 plus guys. We're often very rational human beings. We pride ourselves on our rationality, and like, okay, I have gained weight, and I have gained weight because I put too much calories in my body, and I don't move enough, and I drink too much, and maybe I don't get enough sleep. Maybe they may or may not admit to that, but it's this very kind of, like scientific kind of thing, which is and he was well aware that he was eating too much, had a bit of a motor, so he's gained a bit of weight, had on multiple yo-yo diets. He'll go hard for 3 or 4 weeks, you know, like, and promise I will not drink during the week, right? Just doing the classic case of, you know, relying on willpower. Just right. Okay, this is just an equation. This is just another life equation that I have to deal with. So it's kind of, we really looked at kind of things that what was important to him. You know, he was a family man, a couple of kids, and we went in terms of what's important with his relationship with his wife, how it was affecting their relationship, and you know, that was a part of the mojo. He was there were some relationship issues. He really, and he felt he didn't have the energy to care. And he wasn't caring about himself. So, but you know, and he wasn't getting a lot of sleep. So we knew all that stuff. Once we talked about, okay, what's important to you? You know, what is important to you in life? Why? You know, like being a family man was hugely important to him, and yet he didn't feel. He didn't feel valued. He didn't feel. It was really quite profound in terms of. He just wasn't feeling that mojo of, I want to show up for this family. Like he loved them, and he just so wanted to succeed, and you know, but succeed in terms of being that family man. But he wasn't caring, and kind of going on about this caring thing. But it's so important, because once you realize, and he realized that it was him, he wasn't caring for himself. So basically the approach we thought, we agreed would probably be to start caring for yourself. That thing, really just try some good self-care, because he wanted to improve his relationships. He wanted to improve his relationship with his wife. He wanted to improve his relationship with his kids. He was struggling at work in terms of that mojo. And, you know, so in conjunction with all the kind of physical stuff, in terms of, you know, just that real kind of more, which I think is the more kind of elementary stuff in terms of food, a bit of food stuff that, you know, that he was well aware of, that was put in terms of goals, you know, but to get to that motivation of, why do I want to lose this weight? Why do I want to lose this motor? Why do I want to have more energy? Yeah. Why do I want to exercise? That was, I think, the key. That's what got him out for his walks, you know, because, okay, you know, he was a big walker. He used to be a big walker. He wasn't walking much. So it's like, okay, what's going to get you out consistent, you know, that once he understood, okay, I've stopped caring about myself. And that was massively profound. And he thought, no, I am going to do something about that. It was really cool.
Wow.
It was really
sounds
cool.
like you really tapped into his inner drivers and motivators and values. And so he got committed to caring for himself again. And he was then more able to do the things, not with logic, but also with emotion, with the connection and commitment to doing those things differently, and caring for himself and making the changes that are valuable for health.
Yeah.
And so what was the key?
Sorry, you carry on.
I was going to say, what was the outcome he got? Like, what was the result of the coaching program with him?
Yeah. He lost it. He lost a fair bit of weight, but it was interesting. He had just come just to, all right, I want to lose weight, you know, maybe get a bit more energy, you know, like, you know, but it was, I think it was over about 8 weeks. His relationship did improve. You know, he just had more energy to show up. And it's a very subjective thing. Like, you know, that's the thing with relationships, right? It's all about feeling. It's all about that kind of stuff. It can be sometimes difficult for 40 plus guys. Like I was saying before, we're very logic, you know, a lot of guys, they're kind of, you know, they're numbers guys, you know, you know, but it's, you know, so the proof's in the pudding. Like when you've got that, it's a purpose. Like he really started to rediscover his purpose. It was like, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to, and start caring and he really started to appreciate, I think, the gratitude. He really tapped into his gratitude because he wasn't feeling particularly grateful. And as you know, Mel, like gratitude is massively important towards to get to that kind of happiness, like peace, contentment, it's you must have that gratitude. And he'd also lost that, lost some agency, he just didn't feel in control. It's another thing that I find with 40 plus guys. We like to be in control.
Yeah. And if you feel like you're lacking control, what can you do? And the things that you can do for yourself help you to regain the sense of self-control.
That's it. Yeah. And I think with this guy, that was particular. That's why I think the best strategy for him was self-care, because you can control yourself. Like ultimately, like other people you cannot control, to a certain degree, but
you can influence, but
we can influence. But in terms of things, that we work together, it's tapping, getting a sense of agency over what he could do, what he could put in his mouth, what he could, like in terms of the exercise, just those kind of tweaks. So therefore, just and so increase that sense of agency, and then the flow-on effects of, like he did lose weight, drinking less during the week, so he's sleeping better. Kind of those, because like you were talking about before, Mel, it can become a slippery slope. It can become the cycle. Health and well-being is a cycle.
It's like an ecosystem. Everything's linked, and one thing slips and that leads to another and another and another, right? And I think also, as you're talking, I'm thinking about self-respect.
Yeah.
It really becomes about self-respect. And if you can't respect for and care for yourself, you're not going to get that from other people.
Exactly.
So if you're helping men with their mojo, it's actually really about helping them to care about themselves and others and to respect themselves, which must create that shift in the sense of value that they have, feeling valued and being a valuable person in any sort of relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, like it's for some people, it just seems obvious. Yeah, of course you have to. But it's like, like often with 40 plus guys, they have young families, you that rely on them. So they develop a certain mindset that their health and well-being, what they think is important, just generally they come later in the priority list.
It's so interesting because there's a lot of people talking about this with women, and I'm working in the menopause space.
Yep.
And there are a lot of women who put the family first and put themselves last, but we don't often talk about this with men.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's just as much as a problem for men as it is for women, and maybe a generational thing for Gen Xers.
Yeah. No, I think so. Like, things are improving. Like we learned to be men, but from the baby boomers, right? And who you just get on with it. You don't complain.
Big boys don't cry, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And you inherently, it's like generally the societal view is that's just the way it is. Like men, you're traditionally you're a provider, and you just go down the totem pole. In terms of the priorities.
Yeah.
The priorities are the children. And there's a huge. It makes a whole lot of sense, right? Like it's with young kids, you really need to be looking after them. But that permeates your thinking, and it can be a real struggle. It can be a problem in terms of your, I think in terms of your, like I was talking about before, your sense of agency. Your control, loosely, your control over particularly what's happening at home. A lot of these guys, like this guy that I was talking about, he felt that his voice wasn't heard. at home, and it was just had that. Essentially, it was this reduced sense of age. He was, top, really high flyer at work, but at home he felt completely different.
That's a
And of
big
course,
juxtaposition to
massive
be
juxtaposition.
revered in one or acknowledged in one setting and then not in another.
That's right.
Be a very uncomfortable plummet when you walk through the front door.
Yeah. And so you can imagine that's how, that can really make you unhappy. If like he's getting satisfaction at work, although even that was affected. And so often, like guys will, if things go south at work, start to go bad, that's when things, because that can often be, that's their one piece of solace, and if they're lacking agency at home, but at least they're the boss at work, so so if you're not getting that kind of satisfaction in any aspect of your life, whether it be work or your physical body, the way that you're feeling, or your relationships at home, you can imagine how that's just, and you don't feel like you can say anything, like I said, like they're so proud, these guys are so proud. It's like, hey, I'm living in this beautiful house, and like, hey, why should I be ungrateful? Like I'm ticking the box.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Well, I'm so glad you're doing the work that you're doing, Jono. And how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to know more about how you work, or if they've got some challenges with male mojo and they want to get some support?
Yeah, probably best. I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So probably LinkedIn's the best. Jono Snell, Jono Snell, Snell. Just give me a search on LinkedIn. Like I do. I'm quite active there and networking and that kind of thing. So and just drop me a message.
Fantastic, Jono. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
No, thank you for having me, Mel. Yeah, great to chat.
It's a pleasure. Great to hear different points of view. I've always thought it was easy to coach men because they just say, oh, okay, I need to do that. But I think what you touched on today was that logical side. Oh, yes, I'll just follow a plan, or I'll just do that. But really beneath that, there's more work that needs to be done. And thank you for revealing that to us and letting us know how deep it can go with men, and to help us all understand a bit better the needs of men in their 40s. So appreciate your insights.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks heaps, Jono. I'll put all your details in the show notes, so if anyone wants to catch up with you, they'll know where to go.
Thank you, Mel.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye.